Attention, this is your captain speaking. I'm Eva Morreale.
I'm Julia Moser. Prepare for takeoff.
And this is I Couldn't Help But Wander.
The show to get trivia, tips, tricks, and juicy tidbits from all the world. Or trick-or-treats, I should say.
Ooh, that's so cute. The show that asks, what do you need to pack for a trip beyond the veil?
That's right. We're talking spooky travel.
How many O's is that? 1, 2, 3. Have you ever had a ghostly encounter, Julia?
No. Not that I know. Not that I know of.
That's a resounding no.
I've never seen a full, corporeal apparition. What's the word I'm looking for? I've definitely,
that was very scientific.
It's from Ghostbusters, Eva.
Julia, I'm not a nerd. Okay.
Okay. Yes, I've been in places where I'm I get creepy vibes from this place. Definitely, I studied abroad in college in Edinburgh, and those streets have seen some shit, spooky vibes, graveyard. I love a graveyard, but I've never seen a ghost, and I've never had the kind of ooh, the lights are flashing, kind of a thing. It's not that I don't believe. I want to be very clear. I kind of believe, but I also believe more in vibe. If a bad thing happened in a place, I think that places
energy.
Yeah,
it's totally a thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know that I believe in the ghost of I can't think of Thomas Jefferson haunts. I was name an old guy.
Thomas Jefferson.
What about
that's a good
you?
go-to.
Have you ever had a ghostly encounter?
I don't think so. I totally agree with what you're saying, though, of you can feel an energy shift in certain places, right? I've done state penitentiary tours, and there's the notorious one in Philly, near where I'm from in Jersey, but also going places
it's Eastern
State, yeah, and it was if
there.
anything, it's not it's terrible.
I think
terrible things happen there. Bad vibes.
The bad vibes come from the carceral state.
Yeah. So actually, I'd assume any prison would have those kinds of vibes, whether it's a noted paranormal site or not. But
you want to hear something fun?
Yes,
my mom
always.
is an architect. My mom is an architect, and she told me that prisons and nursing homes are designed with the same.
We got to stop the episode right here. We're done, and that's our show. What?
It's like a K shape, because it's basically where you want. It's you want someone to be able to stand at the intersection of hallways and look down hallways.
Listeners, you can't see, but my eyes have crossed, and I'm about to fall out of my chair. That's dark-sided. What a way to start this episode.
So sorry. Eastern State Penitentiary is great. If you're in the
Philly area, highly recommend. Also, just recommend taking a ghost tour in general. I know you're a fan of a ghost tour.
I love a ghost tour.
I've done ones in Savannah. Savannah is definitely a very haunted city. Again, because the not loosely related to the carceral system, but the enslavement of people coming into the shores of Savannah. We're doing great with this episode. But I also felt Santa Fe had spooky vibes. I was there 2 years ago and had a very weird experience in my hotel room.
Interesting. What did you have? What happened?
Just lots of banging. There was I literally had the kind of the horror movie trope. I'm remembering this now. This is so crazy. So I was hopped up on what's it called? Benadryl, which didn't help the situation. But it was at the Four Seasons, and I was having a very luxe, beautiful time. Heated floors, just fabulousness. And I'm getting ready for bed, and I start hearing banging coming from the suite below me, because the way it's set up is they're essentially tiny apartments, and you have a wood-burning fireplace in your bedroom. It's insane. They leave the firewood for you on your doorstep every night. So I'm getting all cozy for bed, and I hear this banging, and there was a wedding on the property that weekend, so I'm assuming people are just drunk and rowdy below me.
Yeah.
I called the front desk, and ... No one was below me.
Ooh. Was the building like used to be
I don't know. There's
orphanage or
there's
something?
definitely like indigenous bodies all below Santa Fe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very spooky and I was alone, so did not sleep well. Just probably took more Benadryl. Sidebar, Benadryl, as I've now found out, can increase your rate of Alzheimer's and memory loss and dementia.
Well,
so
that's not great.
Full of trivia this episode, full of helpful.
I love that we're like, this is the spooky episode. The ghosts are the.
It's a traumatizing episode.
The Benadryl and the slavery.
The nursing homes.
And the darkness within you sometimes is from the Benadryl. Boy, we're off to a great start. Oh my God. All right, well,
we'll be right back. We'll be right back. But after the break, we'll be talking about haunted destinations with Tammie from the Hollyweird Paranormal Podcast. Today, we were talking to one of the co-hosts of the podcast, Hollyweird Paranormal, Tammie Merheb-Chavez. Welcome, Tammie.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We're so excited.
How did you get into the haunted podcasting game?
Oh my goodness. Well, first off, I'm originally from New Orleans, so I've always been involved in anything weird and haunted, spooky, and just the macabre. I've always loved listening to podcasts ever since like they came out. You know, it started with This American Life way back in the day, and then in 2017, myself and Bryce were kind of throwing back and forth the idea we should start a podcast because we would chit chat in my costume shop like it was the water cooler. And all of a sudden we would stop and look around and there was like a crowd of people listening to us, kind of wanting to chime in. They're like, we heard this amazing conversation. Or my student workers would chime in and they were like, yeah. And this happened and that happened. And it was just like, let's try it out. Let's give ourselves 6 months and let's do it. And here we are still rocking away.
What about the paranormal part of it? I mean, besides just growing up in New Orleans, like how did you get into that?
Oh, goodness. Well, aside from like living in New Orleans, I worked in a lot of haunted theaters. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I worked on a lot of haunted film sets. So not necessarily like sound stages, but a lot of the films that I would be asked to costume or work wardrobe, there were like in these crazy little towns and in these old houses, because for some reason I was always stuck in doing horror genres. And I was fine with that because I love horror. And they would be in these old houses that had ghost stories and weird things would happen to my crew and myself that were unexplainable. Even where I would work with Bryce at our old job in Hollywood, it had a major paranormal element. That's where Charlie Chaplin worked and lived.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of crazy stories attached to the school that security guards and students would share with us in my shop.
That's so cool. I love that. Well, it's really awesome that you're from, and ironic in a way that you're from New Orleans. I mean, I've got a voodoo doll right here.
I can see that.
He's peeking out to say hi. Yeah, that you're from New Orleans. Is there any place that you traveled specifically to like seek out all things paranormal?
Yeah, and I have many more this coming month. So I think the Midwest is so haunted. The Midwest is so crazy. I was like, well, Bryce can tell you too. I mean, he's like, he's from the Midwest. He understands. And I went to his motherland a year and a half ago. I went to Liberty, Missouri to investigate the Oddfellows former orphanage, now turned hotel and winery. Oh. And some weird things happened there. And then I realized, oh my God, Kansas City is right next door. It's 45 minutes away. So I hopped in the car, made the drive to the Sally House, the infamous Sally House, where I booked an hour and a half to do some, content work and just investigate. And it was probably the most tranquil place I've ever been. Like, I went to the most haunted room where the dolls were, had a kiki with them, had a
doll room. No.
And I took a nap And I was like, wow,
What?
that was the best thing. And then my friends, our listeners are like, no, but you got to go to the 1889 McIntyre Villa. I'm like, where's that? They're like, it's so close. And it was literally around the corner. And I went there and weird things happened. Like it was like synchronicities were perfect because the owner was there. She and I got along so well. She gave me a private tour and she let me walk around. And there were points of the tour. This is where it got weird, where she would tell me some crazy stories connected to certain rooms and my audio and my equipment just stopped working. And it's so weird because it worked fine in Oddfellows. It worked perfectly in the most haunted house in Atchison, Kansas. No, it just like went crazy. It just stopped. And I'm like, we got to move somewhere. We got to go somewhere and just tell me a different story. And it worked. And then when she would continue to tell the weird tales connected to certain places of the house, it just stopped. It was the oddest thing. But this coming May, I'll be traveling to Pennsylvania. I'll be traveling to go and investigate Pennhurst and also Gettysburg. And then I will be going to Mexico City for a vacation, but I always sneak in a paranormal, travel. So I'll be going to the Isla de las Muñecas, the island of the dolls in Mexico City. The island of the dolls, or Isla de las Muñecas, is an island that has a bunch of dolls. And these dolls were collected by an old man who lived on this island. And according to legend, he found this young girl, body of a young girl that was floating in the water, and she had died. We don't know how, but she had been drowned, and he had found her, made a burial for her, and was so hurt by finding this poor girl in this water that he decided to collect dolls to appease her spirit. And apparently it's the spirit of this girl that haunts this island. And I believe that the gentleman passed away a few years back, and now we're seeing like his spirit and her spirit on this island. So people have seen a lot of weird things along with some really creepy dolls on this island.
So it's like they're nice dolls. It's a sweet. It's sweet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a solid relationship with the dolls because I can't do dolls. It's too much. It's scary. Very spooky. No, thank you. And I'm sure there's tons of history and haunted history in Mexico City too that we
there's tons. Yeah, and you got the pyramids there. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so my husband and I we're going for a vacation. He's like, I know you. You're gonna find. I'm like, we're going to the Isla de las Muñecas, so we're gonna go do that. Right. Okay.
That's actually a really cool point because I think people think of haunted travel in the inverse way of like picking a specific place because it's haunted and going there. Whereas I feel like you're always looking for a haunted element wherever you go. Mm. And I think, can you talk more about that of like finding the hidden haunted secrets of like any destination?
Everyone has a ghost story to share. I'm sure you guys have something that is weird happened, something that you couldn't explain. And it's always like what Bryce and myself always talk about, like the people who are the biggest skeptics always stop after, they hear we have a paranormal podcast and they poo-poo the paranormal and they're like, well, there was this one time. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And I saw my grandmother just after she passed. Well, there you go. And there's always something out there. So I know in a lot of these cities that I travel to, even if it doesn't have like a famous ghost story or location, you always talk to the locals and the locals always have something to say. Especially the city that we moved to, my husband and I moved to here in Los Angeles. We moved to the city of San Fernando and I find out, it has one of the oldest missions. That mission has a ghost story. And there's another place that has a ghost story that the locals told me about and they sent me to and no one knew about. So it's always like great to talk to locals in these places.
For sure. No, I was just going to say, not to interrupt you. I love doing ghost tours wherever I go, even if it's like not a city that's known for that.
Yeah.
Because exactly. You get like a sense of the history and the stories that people tell.
Exactly. It's a great way to connect with people too. I feel like I connect more with the living than I do with the dead and, doing this podcast and also pursuing my paranormal travels and stuff. It's amazing the amount of people I became friends with in different cities. Like in Gettysburg, I have a contact now. I was just going to go there, do some tours, because I think you need a group, like an actual group or a lot of money to investigate like some of the big places. And through my TikTok, this amazing woman, Steph, she runs one of the most haunted like locations in Gettysburg. It's the old orphanage. And I'm like, Steph, I booked a tour. She's like, you don't need the. So there's this house that is, it used to be an orphanage, and it's haunted by these old Gettysburg children, and a lot of horrible things happened to them. I mean, it was deplorable living conditions and how they were treated back in the day. These poor kids, some of them I think even passed because of these conditions. And I know a bunch of investigators have gone there and they've experienced some pretty crazy things. Well, she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I heard that you're coming to Gettysburg. Are you going to do an investigation anywhere? I'm like, I'm trying. She's like, you just message me. I run the tours of the orphanage. Let's get you in. I'm like, okay. So we're all set for that. I'm staying in a haunted bed and breakfast. Got a lot of things booked in a lot of haunted places there.
So, okay, you're in Hollyweird Paranormal, so you're LA based. When people are coming to LA and they're trying to seek out haunted LA places, what are your like must see top 5?
Well, I always tell people it's amazing to go to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. You have to go see it. And there's not a lot of like true ghost stories connected to it, but there are next door to Paramount Studios, because it shares a wall, and that place has a lot of great ghost stories. And so that's number 1 right there. And number 2, obviously you have to go and have a drink at the Wolves. So it's a little bar in downtown that is right next door to the Hotel Alexandria. And that place has a slew of ghost stories and a lot of like violent history. And then right around the corner, you have to go to the Last Bookstore. This is where Elisa Lam was last seen. She is the, the poor young woman who ended up in the water tank or the cistern in the Cecil Hotel. And that place has also some ghost stories. You can go up to the workers and ask them like, hey, is this place haunted? I did. And they had a bunch of stories to tell me.
The vault is spooky. Like if you go upstairs where the back vault is, have you ever been up there?
Oh, it's so true, girl. You didn't have to say it. Yeah, you just said it.
It's immediately like very quiet, and like it's a literal vault. You go upstairs, and it also has like paranormal books back there and all the horoscope books and all the like weird forgotten LA history. And it's very cool, but it's like still in a very specific way.
So one of the workers told me, he's like, it's not in the vault, but it's actually outside of it where I've seen books fly off the shelf. Like books, some workers, no joke, would come in and, they're like, why are all these books on the floor? And they would like, hey, talk to the closing staff. They would ask them, why didn't you clean up these books? They're like, we promise you there were no books on the ground. Like we did a walkthrough before we left. There was nothing on the ground. We know our procedures. They're like, well, there are a bunch of books on this one aisle. Like what happened? We don't know. So it's all these like common occurrences they have. So a lot of those workers have a lot of ghost stories, but it's such a cool place to go to and venture to, obviously. And then of course you have to go see, the Grand Dame Hotel Cecil. And it's infamous. And right next door is a really delicious New Orleans cafe. They the people that work there are from Baton Rouge, I believe, and they make the best etouffee and po' boys and everything, which is pretty ironic. And there is a gentleman that owns a gallery next door to that hotel as well, and he has this weird poster. It was the original Hotel Cecil poster that somehow he got in a auction, and it has this weird stain on it. It looks like blood. But ever since he's gotten this weird poster, weird things started happening in his gallery. So that is a really cool place to go into. He sells the shirts with the print of that poster on it that says Hotel Cecil. And he's a really cool guy, really welcoming, and you can always go in and get a shirt, support his small business, and hear a couple of crazy tales as well.
Could you talk a little bit about the Hotel Cecil?
It's one of the most violent hotels. In my opinion, I don't think it is. I think it's top 5. I have my own opinion about another hotel right around the corner, but Hotel Cecil has been around for a very long time, since the 30s, and since, even the Great Depression. And it's pretty much right there by, the skids. It's right there by Skid Row. So you have a lot of that energy permeating and kind of walking into the Hotel Cecil. A lot of deaths had occurred, a lot of people who have killed themselves by jumping off of certain floors, throwing, trigger warning, there was a story of a woman who threw an infant out the window. So there's a lot of violent history attached to this place. Also, Richard Ramirez was known to stay in the Hotel Cecil while he was doing his killing sprees. So many people believe that he would go out, hunt, come back, and just kind of lay low until he found his next victims. And I can't remember I think it was the journalist or photographer, Entwerzer. I believe that's his name. There was another gentleman too there who was, also a serial killer who was murdering prostitutes I believe in that hotel and outside. So it has like a slew of crazy history, people that stayed there. And then we had the case of Elisa Lam, who was found in the water cistern. A lot of people believe, that there was some nefarious supernatural element attached to it because of this crazy video where we see her kind of going into some weird motions with her fingers. She's looking in and out of the elevator door as though something or someone was following her. And that was the last clip that we see of her alive before she was found dead in the water cistern, of course. So it's a lot of crazy history, and it was just like it's been very well popularized. I mean, there's a documentary about it too, but there are other places, in my opinion, that the Hotel Cecil doesn't even hold a candle to. And so there's my favorite place. I call it the haunted trifecta, especially where the Hotel Alexandria, the Last Bookstore, and the Cecil, and then there's the Barclay Hotel. So no one has ever heard of Hotel Barclay, but the Hotel Barclay is one of the most violent hotels. You had the LA slasher stay in there, and it is some pretty graphic images of what he had done to his victims, but he tore these women apart in the hotel. And there's some crime scene photos that you can find in there. And I had a lot of friends who worked in this hotel, because this hotel, I think, is Section 8 housing, but it's also used for a lot of films and television shows. And I've had a lot of friends that have worked there, a lot of people who have acted there, and they're like, Tammie, that place is weird. I've seen some weird stuff. I saw an apparition of a man in a period suit. There's a lot of weird things there. There was a fire. There were a lot of deaths connected to it, a lot of freak accidents, the LA slasher, and then I think it was the Grim Sleeper also stayed there. So you had a lot of people with all this violence and this violent history stay there and commit the most horrific crimes. And they did that all within this hotel. And when I hear about the hauntings or that's the thing with the Hotel Cecil, I always ask people, well, tell me a ghost story. I just know it. I went in there and it was creepy. I'm like, well, there's no full body apparition accounts. You didn't see a ghost? Well, no, it just feels weird and it feels spooky. And I just feel like someone's watching me. But when you go to the Hotel Barclay, it's like,
you're seeing stuff.
You're literally seeing things. Like, you're feeling them and you're seeing them in real time. Here's a good ghost story. Like, I've been to Hotel Cecil. Yeah, it's a weird place. It feels off. When I went to Hotel Barclay for Ghost Adventures, they had interviewed me, and I was shooting with Jay in the basement. And they were setting me up. They were miking me up. Me and Jay were doing a rehearsal of what I should say in front of the camera. And it was in this really crazy room. And this room had all of the original furniture from all the rooms in the hotel. It was these creepy looking mirror dressers. And they looked old.
What era are we talking?
Late 1800s, early 1900s.
Oh,
very old. Yeah.
They were old. And because that's when the hotel opened. So we were sitting there rehearsing, and it was just him and I, what I thought was just him and I. And I was like, okay, so we're going back and forth. I'm talking about the LA slasher. And then out of nowhere, we both hear, it sounded like someone or something ran into the dresser, and it made a very loud noise. And Jay and I just stopped wide-eyed, and we looked, and I'm like, is there anybody back there? He's like, no. I'm like, where's the sound guy? Where's the dude? Where's or the camera guy? Where's the other guy with the beard that was with us? He's like, he's upstairs getting more equipment. We're just doing rehearsals. I'm like, so there's no one else with us? He's like, no. I'm like, that is so weird that we heard that while we're talking about this killer. It was just the weirdest thing. We just stood there for a good 2 minutes in silence, you heard that. What was that? We're investigating. What was that? But it did sound like a force pushed the dresser, and it was very, very prominent. Yeah, so that is that. I mean, I'm like, see, I told you guys, this place, you're gonna feel and see things here. It's inevitable.
Oh my God.
No, thank you. I know. We need to sage this podcast after. Open up the windows in my house and just air things out.
Who is the most famous ghost you've interacted with or that you've heard about haunting LA?
Oh my gosh. I would have to say Charlie Chaplin had to have been one of the, because me and Bryce worked in the school where it has his original bungalows. It was the bungalows that he built in 1901, and they can't be demolished because they're a historical artifact of the city of Hollywood. And right next door is the Jim Henson studio, which was originally the, Chaplin Studios. Yeah. And we did an investigation with Bridget Marquardt of The Girls Next Door. This was back in 2018 or 19.
So cool.
Yeah. So she came, and we had her in the theater. And that's where people have seen the man in the bowler hat. And we did an EVP session. We did it with with the voice box, and we had a couple of things come through. And it was a man of, a certain time era that we believe was Charlie. And he had more of a connection next door to the studio. So it was really interesting to converse with him and to see where's he been doing? What has he been doing? Where he's been at? And he just been floating around Hollywood apparently.
Oh my God. Well, should we get into some trivia?
Yeah, I think this is a great segue for us to get into some trivia for you. Although I think you're going to pass with pass with flying. You're a star student already.
All right, so I'm looking at a list of Voters Travel list of the 10 most haunted bars in America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what would you say?
Jean Lafitte's in New Orleans, the Blacksmith.
Yeah.
Got it. There's the Moon River Brewery in Savannah, Georgia. That one is crazy haunted.
Oh, okay. We got
one on our list. We're adding it.
Yeah, we're adding it. We're taking notes.
See, this is what, part of our podcast, we like to go off the haunted beaten path. And I just did a mini investigation with Spooky Foodie at Rainbow Bar and Grill. And everyone that has worked there has said that there's something there. It was a bar that used to be a restaurant in the 30s. That's where Joe DiMaggio, it's a place where Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn Monroe had their first date. And she almost stood him up. The booth where they had their first date is still there. And it used to be ran by gangsters. Sunset Strip was ran by gangsters. That place has a lot of crazy history, of course.
Oh my God, it's mafia energy. I love it.
I'm trying to think of any more that I know, of bars.
Here's the list. We have Pioneer Saloon in Good Springs, Nevada. Ear Inn in New York. The Menger Bar in San Antonio.
Yes.
Have you been there?
Been there. It's a time warp when you walk in there. You feel the energy. It's really cool, but it's you feel there's something here, man. And of course, you talk to the workers. They have stories.
Yeah, they always know. I did a ghost tour. My boyfriend's from San Antonio, so we did a ghost tour when I was there for Christmas, a couple years ago.
Oh, how
and
fun.
It's cool. Because, I feel
you would never think of San Antonio as a destination.
Because it's so sprawling. So, his parents live, in a suburb, but the downtown is, an Old West town. Oh, my gosh. It's really spooky. And there's,
you got the Alamo there, You have one of the oldest churches, and I think it could be one of the top 5 oldest churches
We were talking
Wow.
about like hotels that were for jail, like jails that were turned into hotels. I think there's a hotel that was a gallows or something like that. So it's like very spooky.
No,
Oh yeah.
I'm not brave. No, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. So then we have White Horse Tavern in Newport, Rhode Island, Simon's Tavern in Chicago, Bridge Cafe in New York. A lot of New York. The Tavern in Austin, Tiger's Tap Room in Tucson. Oh, and then another New Orleans, our nodes.
Arnold's, yes. yes. There's so many there. You'd be so surprised. And a lot here too. Anywhere on the Sunset Strip is like, it's going to have some stories.
Yeah.
This is good to know because I feel like we're also getting like you said, an off the beaten path, like a haunted starman, if you will. Like skip the TMZ tour and just do this and you'll actually run into celebrities. They may be dead, but they may be long gone. But at least you'll have like some sort of celebrity interaction, you know?
Exactly.
Okay. So this one might be very on the nose based on what we just talked about, but which notorious downtown LA hotel inspired Lady Gaga's season of American Horror Story?
Oh my God. Lady Gaga. Oh, you know, it's actually 3.
Ooh. Okay.
It's not just one. It's not one. No, it's I'm serious. It's actually 3 because people think it's the Cecil. It's not.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. It's 3 hotels. It's the Barclay, the Alexandria, and Cecil. Like I told you, it's the trifecta. So
oh my gosh. Okay.
you had the slasher that was also an American Horror Story that belonged to the Barclay. And of course, the other, you had Richard Ramirez in there in the hotel series, Cecil. The Phantom Wing that they find in American Horror Story, that's Alexandria.
Wait, I've heard about this. What's the Phantom Wing again? It rings a bell.
So in the Hotel Alexandria in 2007 it's probably 2007, 2012. Don't quote me, but I know it's in early to mid 2000s. The Hotel Alexandria goes into hands of another propertier. They end up doing renovations, and within the renovations, they find this entire it's like a wing within the Hotel Alexandria, and it's a phantom wing that was blocked out. And it was from like the time period of when it was opened. And so that story transferred to American Horror Story because no one ever thinks to put that together with that hotel. They are because everybody's so fixated on Hotel Cecil. They neglect to hear about the other stories of these crazy hotels that actually had famous people. Hotel Alexandria had Rudolph Valentino stay there. You have the Rudolph Valentino suite where his friend at the time allowed him to stay with him for a couple months until he could get his bearings and his feet on the ground in the industry. So that is also a connection to Hotel Cecil. So many people are like, no, it's Hotel Cecil. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a collection of all these hotels that made up Hotel and American Horror Story.
Ooh, I love this. You're schooling us.
Yeah.
We're learning so much. This is incredible. No, but I think it's also important and really cool though, this history isn't forgotten and it's not just thought of like this one note thing. Like it's deep and rich and interconnected. This is so I'm so spooked. Okay.
There's a connection to a lot of things everywhere. It's like synchronicities is so insane as far as the connections. Yeah.
A recently departed soul who I hope does not decide to rejoin us here on Earth is O.J. Simpson.
Oh God.
If he does, we hope he is stuck in traffic forever on this same freeway that the Bronco chase happened. Do you know what the freeway was?
Was it the 405?
Yes!
That is the only time you ever see someone make it through traffic was the O.J. Simpson case.
I was gonna say someone on the for those of you that are not LA based, the 405 is notoriously hellish.
Running on a silly one. Paul Frees, the actor who voiced the ghost host at Disneyland's Haunted Mansion, also voiced a famous brand mascot. This is multiple choice. Is it Tony the Tiger, Lucky the Leprechaun from Lucky Charms, the Pillsbury Doughboy, or Mr. Clean?
I'm going to go with Tony the Tiger. Is that true?
What's the Pillsbury
Pillsbury Doughboy. Which is so wildly diametrically opposite.
I did not know that. See, now I'm learning something now.
Yes,
We did it. We got one.
you're welcome. Julia, let's get into our quandary for the week. We're talking dark tourism.
Yes.
Very much in league with the theme of this episode. Visiting haunted places or staying in particularly haunted places, and or the kind of revamp of these places that have experienced deep, traumatic, horrific events and the ethics of visiting them. And if it's kind of okay or if there's some rules that should be implemented surrounding them. Off the dome, what are you thinking?
Right off the bat, I'm like, it's a super case-by-case basis. Like, depends what happened there. Are the people still alive? Has the place treated this with some care and respect? Or is it, like, all for, like, a gag? Like, I love the macabre. I'm into, like, spooky things. And, like, I don't know if you've ever been to Salem, like, where the Salem witch trials happened. That is, like...
No, but I really want to go.
Okay, like, it's really kitschy. And it's fun, but it's, like, so, like, you know, spooky witches on the corner and, like, hee. And, like, they did kill women. So it's not...
Yes.
They
Yes.
killed some people. So it's not, like...
Yeah.
But I do feel like that was 300 years ago. It's, like, become a cultural... thing, and I think like,
Yes.
it's so like I actually don't really mind. Like, yes, people did die,
Yes.
but I think it's okay.
You know, yeah, it's okay that they
That's
died.
one
No,
where I'm like, it's
I-
okay to like have, I don't want to say fun with it, but like have a little bit more sort of irreverence around it.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. There's like this reclamation happening there, right? Of specifically women taking that legacy and turning it into something that could be learned from, and also like claiming, you know, witchery and putting it on full display, which I think is a really great way of shifting the focus of like something horrible that happened there.
And also it's like when we're thinking about Halloween, right? It's the time of year. And like, what is the point of this holiday, right? It's to like make death less scary, right? In a lot of ways, like, where
I love that frame of mind.
like culturally speaking, and like, you know, different cultures have different approaches to this holiday, like thinking about like the Day of the Dead and Mexico and like whatever. But there is this sort of we make death approachable. And I think
yes,
there is something
literally not scary.
Yeah, there is like, and we live in that space and that kind of like liminal, like the tension of like celebrating death, but also kind of being scared by it and embracing our fear and scary.
Yeah,
there's like a lot there.
There is a lot there.
Yeah.
How do we feel about like Justin Bieber going to the Anne Frank house and being like, you probably would have been a believer.
Yeah. See,
yeah. This is where it starts to get tricky.
See, this is why I started with Salem, because I was like, that end of the spectrum I'm totally comfortable with. Then on the other end of the spectrum, we have the people who like take dating app pictures at the Holocaust Memorial.
Yes.
We have people who get married,
which
at
is a thing, people. Yes, absolutely.
We have Justin Bieber
we're getting into
saying
the meat of it
Anne
now.
Frank should have been a believer.
Yes, this is where things start to get dicey. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. When you start getting into the morality and ethics of, also, you know, there's sidebar in my work on our site, we kind of discuss these issues through like, we get a lot of pitches about former prisons becoming hotels and stuff, which we don't need that.
How do you guys approach it?
Yeah, certain things are just going to be clicky and fun, right? Like, of course, I want to hear what it was like to stay in, oh gosh, she killed her family with an axe.
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden. Oh gosh, it's a rhyme. Why can't I remember it? Yeah, we got a pitch maybe about a year ago about I stayed in the Lizzie Borden house. Here's what it was like. And of course I want to read that. But at the same time, yeah, I think it's important to treat global sites of remembrance with a certain amount of respect. Like, that's not the place to take a selfie.
Right.
So I think it's always like a gut check. Like if it immediately feels a little icky, you know if it's worth touching or not. You know, former prison sites, former plantations. I think
but at the
lot
same
of
time,
the work we do and stuff.
I was gonna say
Go
I was
ahead,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
like there are like certain like plantations being of that have like made a point of
Yeah.
like we're gonna talk about what actually happened here.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what I was just about to
Yeah.
get into, of like, if you're taking it from the perspective, and similarly to stuff like Salem, if you're, you know, making an effort. I saw, which is also sick and sad that it took fucking 300 years, but the government of Massachusetts recently exonerated all the women who were tried as witches. It's like 300 years still, but appreciate the effort. But yeah, but I think if we kind of juxtapose it as, you know, putting front and center these things that happen and where do we go from here versus just kind of like
Ogling,
I guess for lack of a better term, yes, ogling, glamorizing, and just kind of putting it all on display without really adding the nuance or cultural context of these things, then it kind of like feels flat, not worth covering, and also kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
So I think I'd apply those same kind of like morality gut checks to your own visits.
Yeah.
So yes, go visit these places and really learn the history versus kind of taking a lackadaisical approach.
I think we sort of we should start like formulating like Julia and Eva's rules for travel, because I do think we're kind of like circling. We talked about this in our Paris episode with Allison, that like not going into a place blind, and like I'm a spontaneous traveler and sometimes I'll just like wander into a place. But like if you are going to a place and you are planning, you owe both the people who live there and also the people who died there. Yeah. Like a certain amount of respect. And I think that like when in doubt, like do your research, know what you're getting
give
into,
it a goog.
and like give it a goog. And just like respect. I think just like treating places that they deserve with respect.
Rule number 1, don't be a dick.
Yes. Rule number 1 is don't be a dick. It's not,
and what's crazy to me is it's honestly easier to not be a dick than it is to be a dick.
Yeah.
Sidebar, you know, we've had discussions about doing a Hawaii episode, which I could go long on. I think Hawaii is rife for dissecting a lot of issues that come into play with travel and respectful travel. But I was watching a TikTok about, you know, you're supposed to stay 200 feet from sea turtles if you see them on the beach. And Native Hawaiians were walking by and being like, get away from the fucking turtles. Like, it's harder to approach a turtle and break out your phone and be annoying and be in the face of a sea turtle than it is to just walk on by and appreciate the turtle. So, yeah, rule number 1, don't be a dick. It's not that hard.
And I think rule number 2 is like always bring Tums.
Travis and I have Travis husband mentioned, we have a pill bag that we travel with, and we just take the Ziploc bag.
Is it loose? You just have a bag full of loose pills?
Loose pills. Loose pills. You got the digestive enzymes, we got the Tums, we got the Advil, you know, we got the all the things.
That's
all the only the Gas X, if it comes to that.
The only way to make sure you're not haunted by meals past.
No. That's a great note.
We got it all in this episode. We got ghosts of Charlie Chaplin. We got ghosts of exes. We got ghosts of food poisoning past.
Always be prepared.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Oh my God.
Incredible.
Well, I think we've reached the end. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so fun.
This was delightfully fun, delightfully spooky. We may need to like break this out to like get rid of the demons.
Oh, there you go. That will certainly scare it. That will certainly scare whatever bad juju is around. Yeah.
Tammie, go ahead and plug away. Where can we find you? Where can we listen to you?
Sure. You guys can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Hollyweird Paranormal. We're on X under HWP Podcast. You can follow me and my spooky travels and stories on TikTok. I'm under at Haunted LA Girl. And you can also find our podcast, Hollyweird Paranormal on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast fix, of course. And our website is hollyweirdparanormal.com if you want to learn more about our podcast and listen to past episodes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
What a joy. So much fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of another I Couldn't Help But Wander. Thank you to Tammie for joining us.
You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts or on the Cerca app for iOS. That is CERCA.
That's also where you can get Cerca's audio guides to your favorite destinations like Barcelona, Paris, Rome, all written and voiced by locals. Just search Cerca in the Apple App Store.
And you can find me at Julia Moser with Duke. Can you? And you can find me at Julia Moser with 4 R's on Twitter, Instagram, and with 5 R's on TikTok for dumb reasons.
And you can follow my online and IRL adventures at Eva Pants on Instagram.
Thanks for listening and happy or spooky.
Happy
spooky?
wandering.
Spooky
wandering.
wandering.
Spooky wandering. He's our mascot.
Oh my god. My dog senses a ghost, I guess.